So as I go through this, you're welcome to take notes if you want. I don't really care. Another thing you can do is get back on Moodle if you're not sure about some of this stuff. Watch it, see what parts you don't understand, and then you can go back and watch our lessons if that's what it takes for you to make sure you do good on this. Like I talked about before, I'm gonna try to touch base on everything that we've done in here so far this year. Remember, a big part of what we worked on in here was OSHA. So there's going to be some OSHA questions on there. I'm going to throw them out there, and I want you guys to answer. The major goal of good housekeeping is to what?
Keep everything up to date.
No, good housekeeping, keeping the shop clean. Why do you want to keep a place clean? That's to prevent accidents. That's the #1 reason people get hurt on a job site is because of it not being kept clean, which we have some cleaning to do out here. Going back to the harness system, she brought those in, let you guys try them on. The D-ring or the support point on the safety harness should be placed where? That's the thing that it attaches to, so in case you fall, the cable or cord, whatever it may be. Center between your shoulder blades, right? Not the center of your back, center of your shoulder blades, okay? What's the system called that if you're working on something electrical and you could disconnect the power, but to keep somebody else from turning it on? Lockout, tag out. Okay. Talking about equipment, any kind of machine that has some kind of guarding, this has a guard here. What is the purpose of guarding on machinery? More specific than that, though. To protect the machinery? The guard is to protect you, and it's to protect you from moving parts. So this particular guard is to protect you from that saw blade. Okay, that's why it's on there. Okay, so it's to protect from rotating parts. You guys talked a little bit about chemicals, any kind of chemical that is in a building, and safety procedures for that in case somebody digested it or got it in their eyes or anything like that. There's information there supposed to be in a building that tell you how to deal with that. Does anybody remember what those sheets are called? MSDS sheets. Ours are located up in the front office for all the chemicals in this building. So if you guys happen to get something in your eyes, we can refer to that to see what we should be doing. That is an OSHA rule that has to be, and you would be fined if it wasn't in place. So speaking of OSHA, what does OSHA stand for?
Occupational Safety
and Health Administration. Okay, that'll be on there. Okay, so in here, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Some of the safety, there will be also questions on there about safety that we went through. What did we talk about before you make any adjustments? Say I'm got to adjust the depth or the angle on this saw. Before I do that, what do I have to do? Always unplug it. I don't want no power source to it. Okay. If I was adjusting this depth to cut a piece of wood, no matter what it is, how much deeper is that blade than the material I'm cutting? Quarter. That is what is safe. Okay. Talking about ladders, extension ladders. If you're putting an extension ladder up against a roof to get on top of a roof. How much, or a platform, maybe a second story of a house. Maybe you don't have the walls up, so you're getting up there, or the stairs to get up there. How much higher does that ladder have to extend above that platform or that roof?
2 feet? No, 4 feet.
It's 2 feet.
It's 2 feet?
Is it? It's 3 feet.
Oh.
It is right between there, 3 foot. It has to be minimum. And that's a minimum. It's sort of like wire stapling, huh? 3 foot above. It has to be minimum. It could be 4 foot or 5 foot, but it has to be at least 3 foot. What must we wear all the time in our lab? Safety glasses. We have other personal protection equipment here, earplugs if you want to wear them. You know, work boots are a good idea, but safety glasses are a must out here. Speaking of other stuff, we do have dust masks. When we get to the drywall part, I do have them. I'm not going to continually hand you one out every single day, but if you want one of them, I'm not going to make you wear them, I guess, but they are there if you do want them. So, concrete section. Doesn't matter how you're doing your finish. If you pour something, what's your first step? Okay, you get the concrete dumped in there, and yes, screeding it. Okay, you're going to screed it off, which is with a 2x4, correct? Okay, what's your next step? If it had any size to the project at all, yes, you would bull float. And then what's your next step?
Don't you have the lines and stuff? Don't you like do the corners in the middle?
Why do you do that the whole way?
Can't make it.
Right here. Hand float or mag. Goes over it next. Yeah, I'm not going to ask you that question if you would do this or this first. That's kind of could go either way, so I won't ask you that. But yes, this is an edger, right? Edger, and then a joiner to cut joints in it. What is the purpose of joints?
To relieve the pressure of the concrete. So if there's a crack, it goes to that.
Right. You wanna. It doesn't prevent cracks. It prevents cracks from going all over. So you want to put these in areas where it could possibly crack, and then the crack will go to the joint and hopefully stay in it. Your last step, I don't care what you're working on, whether it's broom finish or, no, it shouldn't be your last step with broom finish. Brooming would be the last step. But this comes later. If it's a smooth concrete, this was your last step right here, a hand trowel. They come in different sizes, but they're the thinner one, and that is a finished trowel. Does anybody remember the name of this? No? Margin trowel. For strengthening concrete up, what 3 methods do we have for strengthening it up? I mean, there is more concrete or more cement in concrete makes it stronger, yes. The bag mix, we talked about that. But I'm talking about an additive other than anything to do with the concrete. What 3 things can we use? That's in concrete, no. Okay, them are the makeup. Them are the makeups of concrete. Some kind of stone.
Limestone?
That could be limestone or round stone. But I'm talking about, yes, limestone would strengthen it up, right? But I'm talking about these additives. Right. Fiber mesh, which comes in a bag, and they mix it in the concrete. It's all throughout the concrete. That looks like little fiberglass hairs. That's what it is. Wire mesh, fiber mesh, and re-rod or rebar. Let's see, what else did I want to make sure I covered? The relief cuts are to make the cracks go, prevent them from spreading all over the concrete. when we talked about all these processes as far as this and the bull float, and even screeding with the 2x4, what does that do? All of them pretty much do the same thing. They're just done in steps. They push the stone down, bring the cream up, and flatten the surface, right? They do all three. All of them do that. We talked about limestone. Limestone does strengthen concrete up more than round stone, right? Usually used in outside pours. Why does the limestone strengthen it up more?
Has more ridges in it.
Yeah, because of the different angles. It gives that cement places to adhere. If it's just round, yeah, it's going to adhere to it, but not as strong as something that has different angles. So that's why. There will be a problem on there figuring amount of concrete. It's the same process. To get all the points, you have to show the formula. What is the formula? Austin, could you move that a little bit here for me? What is the formula? Whoop. So it's length times width times thickness divided by 27. Remember, we're talking about cubic yards of concrete. That's what it's sold in. So why it's 27, it's because 1 cubic yard is 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot deep. So that's where that 27 comes from. You would multiply the 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. That's where that comes from. So this is your formula that you have to equals cubic yards, right? There's your formula. So you have to have that on the problems. So then it's just plug in your numbers in. Does everybody remember that most of the time when you pour concrete, it's inches thick, but it's feet everywhere else, right? Does everybody remember how to convert those inches? So if you have an area here, and it's, say, 27 long, 27 feet by 12 feet by 4 inches thick. Does everybody remember how to plug that in? You're going to divide the inches by 12, yes, and it's going to give you a decimal place. So it's going to be, if you were plugging these in, length is 27 times width, which is 12, times 4 inches, but what is 4 divided by 12? Does anybody have a calculator? It comes up 0.333, on and on. I don't care if you just did 2 3s or 3 3s, but you have to show your work so I know what you did, so I know where your answer came from. They may vary a little bit. And then whatever that answer is, you would divide by 27. Okay? Then on the end of it, make sure you're putting whatever your answer is, you're putting cubic yards of whatever it is. That's part of the problem. So does anybody have any questions with that? Like I said, if any of this you're struggling with, you guys can get on Moodle, you can go back to the lesson, and we did some demonstrations in there too, so that'll help you. You can rewatch this. Square foot, there will be some square foot questions on there. So same thing, you have to write the formula down to get all the credit. What is the formula for square foot? Length times width equals the area, or square foot is normally what we're dealing in, square foot of the area. So you got to write the formula down. What's that? Square footage, yes. So that's just dealing with a flat surface. It doesn't have a thickness. So if you were figuring out how much floor tile you needed for this or how much drywall for a wall, that's what you use it for. So all it is you have a length times width. So if this is 10 and this is 30 foot, you plug your numbers in. 30 times 10 equals, what is that, 300? And it would be square feet because we're dealing in feet. So you would have to write square feet, and that would be your answer. But you have to have this, you have to have plugging your numbers in, you have to have this including that to get all your credit, okay? So anybody have any questions with that? Square footage. There will be a tape measure section on there where you're simply reading a tape measure and writing the measurement down. Okay, we should all have that by now. There will be a question on there about centers. We put things on center. Why do we lay out on center? What do we talk about? What's the purpose of it? When you lay a wall out or a floor system, why do you lay it out to on center? A certain on center.
Proper support.
Proper support is part of it, yes. What else? Thinking about what you're going to cover it with. Yeah, whatever it may be. So your material works out correctly without a bunch of waste, right? Usually OSB or plywood comes in what size? What's a normal size for a sheet? You guys cut a bunch of it.
I don't know how big that sheet was.
4 foot by 8 foot. Most everything, drywall, that's a common piece of drywall, 4 by 8. OSB, 4 by 8.
Big sheets out there with 4 by 8?
4 foot by 8 foot. They're 4 foot wide by 8 foot. Yep. So what are the common centers that we learned about in here? 16 is the most common, correct? 16 on center. What's another one?
What?
What's another one? We just went through this. You did that layout assignment on those grease boards. What else did you do? 12. Yep, 12 is a common one. What's another common one? There's one more that we did. Not 8. No. Don't remember the other one. 2 foot. 2 foot on center. Remember, most trusses, when you set trusses on a house, the pre-made roof systems, they're 24 on center. Floor joists are usually 16 on center. We talked about that. Talking about material. 2x material. Any 2x material. Say it's 2x4. What is the actual size of a 2x4?
Is it 1.5 inches?
The thickness is 1.5 inches. So it's not really 2 inches, it's 1.5 inches, but by how wide? 3.5, yes. Okay, that's good information to know. That probably will be on there. Talking about some other material, what about 1x material? So it's 1x4. What's the measurements of a 1x4?
1/2 inch and 3.
This is 3.5 again.
1.5, and then the wall would just be 1/2.
No, it's not a half. No,
Is it 3/4?
it is 3/4. Okay. Talking about any of our OSB or plywood, it doesn't matter. What are some of the common thicknesses of it? What did you use on the floor? We practiced that, 3/4. Then we used 1/2 inch, and then there's 7/16, and there's 3/8. There's all those sizes. It doesn't matter what thickness you're using of them. What do you nail that OSB or plywood to 2x4 framing with? No. You're nailing sheeting to 2x material? What? Not screws. That's what we practiced, and we said this is not normal, but we wanted to take it up. And we talked about what to use. 8s, 8D sinkers. It doesn't matter what the sheeting thickness is. Now, of course, for floors, it would be one that has ribs on here, a rink shaped type nail, because it holds better to stop squeaks, but it's still going to be an 8D nail. What about treated lumber? What do you nail that with? It's always got to be a galvanized nail, or if you were screwing it, it would have to be a galvanized screw, right? And everybody knows the difference, right? Okay. What about 2x, you're nailing 2x material to 2x material, what do you use? 16D sinkers, has to be. When we're talking about a header or floor joists, what determines the width of it this way? How big you have to use? What determines that? The span of what it's going to run. So if you got a header that's got a span 8 foot for an 8-foot opening, it's going to have to be wider than one that's 3 foot. That makes sense, right? I mean, it's got to support more weight above it. So the span determines the width of them. Every single one of you, when I sent you upstairs to get your material for your walls, I had you get a 10-footer, and by the directions it said an 8-footer on there. But I explained to every single one of you that we did not have 8-footers up there. We had what? What other thing did we have besides the 8-footer? It's way early.
What?
It's way early.
I'm giving you background music, man.
Pre-cut. It's a pre-cut. And how big is a pre-cut? It's not quite 8 foot. It's the purpose of a pre-cut is so when you add your double top plate and your single bottom plate, your wall ends up a certain height, which is actually more than 8 foot. So once it's drywalled on the top, you still have, and your flooring's on, you still have about 8 foot. And they're 92 5/8. And I mentioned that to every single one of you when you went up there to get your board, that it wasn't an 8-footer, it was a pre-cut, and they were 92 5/8. So that's something important to know. What's the purpose of a double top plate?
For the support?
It supports the weight above, okay, that's one thing. And what does it do in the corners? No, not nailer, but it ties two walls together, right? Because remember, you crisscross them, and we talked about that. If this wall is the one running through and this one butts to it, when you put your double top plate on, the one that stops short will actually, their top plate would come over the top of that and tie it in. So you can nail them together and make the wall strong. We talked about the thicknesses and the size of that. When you're trying to square an area up, whether it be a wall or a floor system, or you're laying out building lines, what do you do to make sure it's square? Measure the diagonals. Yes. There will be a section on there, like you've done before, cutting a fraction and measurements in half. Okay, so that'll be on there. There will also be parts of a wall, just like you did before. Okay? So, I believe that will be it. That's on the exam. So, remember, if any of you have any questions, you can refer back to those lessons. They're on Moodle, okay, to get your information. You can watch this again if you're not sure about all this stuff. The stuff that you needed demonstrations done, I think we did on the board. Everything else is just studying your guys' paperwork to make sure you know it. But you can go back into those lessons, though, and look at that stuff. But you guys got to put forth the effort to be able to do that. Yeah, you can stop.